The life of the Mitchell couple could have been called happy and prosperous if it wasn't for one but. For 10 years now, Jessica and Brian were unable to have children. It wasn't for the lack of trying. Unfortunately, they lost every pregnancy in the early stages, which saddened the young family immensely. The Mitchells switched doctors, tried everything they could, but to no avail. Despite having all the doctor's prescriptions and taking every precaution, Jessica couldn't keep the pregnancy for more than 2 months. Eventually, the young couple decided to adopt a child or resort to the surrogacy services, and it was at the time of this important decision that Jessica got pregnant again. Having learned the good news, Brian took incredible care of his wife, desperately trying to save the unborn child. Never before has this family been as close as during these 9 months, which were full of anxiety and worrying. Fearing that something would interfere with the pregnancy, Jessica and Brian reconsidered their views on life. Abandoning noisy office parties and irregular working hours, too much was at stake for the Mitchell family. Fortunately, adhering to all the rules they set for themselves helped the couple finally get the desired result. The birth of little Molly was without exaggeration. She was the best thing that happened to Brian and Jessica Mitchell in their entire life. The parents were on cloud 9 and surrounded the golden-haired angel with tenderness and care from the first day of her life. Jessica zealously took care of the baby and quickly decided against the services of a nanny, since she didn't want to entrust anyone else with the life of the one most important person in her life. On his side, Brian took care of the financial needs of the family, taking it upon himself to make sure that his wife and little daughter had everything they needed. Little Molly had her own bedroom, where she had enough room for a canopy bed and a heap of soft toys donated by relatives and family friends. Despite the fact that Molly never left on her own, her room was equipped with a baby monitor. Days, months, and even years were full of love and joy, and went by incredibly quickly. The happy parents indulged in their daughter's every whim, trying to fulfill every single one of her wishes. Busy running errands and doing chores, Brian and Jessica didn't even seem to notice when several years had passed. Meanwhile, Molly had learned to walk, speak, and even write a few words in block letters. But more than anything else, the girl loved walking in the city park. This was partly because she could comfortably ride her tricycle or scooter on its shady alleys, and partly because Molly had a friend who lived nearby. No, her friend wasn't homeless, but it lived in a tree hollow, loved nuts, and belonged to the species of forest squirrels. The red-haired beauty was looking forward to the girl's arrival because she always brought treats, nuts, seeds, or cookies. That day, Molly and her mother went to the park, and everything was as usual. Knowing about her daughter's friendship with the squirrel, the loving mother wasn't surprised when Molly approached the tree and quietly called for her friend. But to Molly's disappointment, the squirrel refused to go down and take the treat from her open palm. Soon, the bushes across the street moved, and the girl understood why her fluffy friend was acting weird that day. Clutching a piece of cookie in her hand, Molly watched a shaggy head appear from behind the bushes. It belonged to a large dog. "Honey, take a step back, please. Don't go near that dog. It might bite you," said Jessica, terrified, taking her daughter by the hand. But Molly didn't listen, as if sensing that the dog wasn't dangerous. She offered the poor thing a cookie, which the dog carefully took from the girl's thin, childish fingers. Jessica was furious. For some reason, it seemed to the woman that even the slightest touch of a stray dog would get her daughter infected with a bunch of incurable diseases. The girl, however, did not share her mother's concerns. Escaping from her mother's hold, the girl rushed to give the shaggy monster a big hug. "Molly, what are you doing? Get away from the dog immediately," Jessica exclaimed, sincerely hoping that she could get the girl to come back. But Molly was unstoppable. Smiling happily, the girl ran her fingers through the dog's hair, full of matted clumps, rejoicing every time the dog touched her cheek with his black, wet nose. Mommy, can we take this dog home? He's so cute," Molly asked, looking at her mother with a pleading look. At first, Jessica adamantly refused to take the shaggy dog home. But for all her fragility and delightful appearance, Molly knew how to be convincing. Thus, it took less than half an hour for the girl and her mother to come back home, bringing the stray dog with them. The dog behaved very calmly all the way home, not paying any attention to the cats or the female dogs on the way. On the way home, unable to dissuade her daughter from the dangerous friendship, Jessica called her husband and explained the essence of the problem. The alarmed father arrived immediately, and taking Molly's word that she would give up the dog if it turned out that the poor fellow was sick with something, he took the animal to the vet. "Don't worry, buddy. Let them run some tests first, and then we'll be happy to welcome you into our home," said Brian as he petted the dog. To the surprise of both the man and the veterinarian, the dog was completely healthy. His ears, eyes, and teeth were in perfect condition, and even the parasite test came back negative. The vet said that he was some kind of a mix with the Newfoundland breed, which has long been famous for its size and thick, dark coat. For a small fee, the staff of the vet clinic dealt with the dog's coat. The poor thing had to be shaved and washed, and they even cut off his claws. They also didn't forget to vaccinate him. "Well, that's what I'm talking about," Brian smiled, opening the front passenger door for the dog. When the clean pet with the new haircut appeared at the doorstep of the Mitchell family house, even Jessica couldn't contain her surprise. "Wow, how pretty you are! Mom, Dad, just look at my friend!" Molly was very excited, hugging the furry animal, who was gratefully rumbling something in response. Embracing each other, Jessica and Brian watched how happy their daughter was, playing with the intelligent and obedient pet. After talking it over, the couple suggested naming the dog Lucky. "Wow, Lucky," said the girl excitingly, and went on to feed the pet a generous serving of dog biscuits. That memorable evening, Lucky had officially become a member of the Mitchell family. The dog played with the girl in the bedroom, falling asleep at her bed in the evenings, and also accompanied Jessica and Molly on their walks to the park. Pretty soon, even the girl's red-haired friend got used to her furry pet. The tiny squirrel would fearlessly jump onto the dog's back and take the treats that Molly brought over. Looking at her happy daughter, Jessica caught herself thinking that she was glad that Molly got to have a truly loyal friend in her life. One day during nap time, a sound of the child crying and dog barking came suddenly from Molly's room. Jessica was in the kitchen at the time, so she rushed to Molly's room as fast as she could. What she saw there was so terrifying that her heart almost stopped. Molly was lying on the floor, and Lucky was pushing his forepaws at her chest. Jessica was outraged. She chased the dog away and helped her daughter get up. As soon as the girl recovered from the initial shock, the woman picked up the phone to call the animal service, deciding to get rid of the dangerous pet. But at the last moment, Molly took her by the hand and told her what had really happened. Apparently, Molly decided to have a drink of water before taking her nap. She took a bit too big of a sip and choked on it. Suffocating, Molly sank to the floor. At that moment, Lucky forcefully pushed his little owner in the chest, thereby helping the girl get rid of the water in her lungs. After listening to her daughter, Jessica could barely hold back her tears and hugged the dog, who was watching his owners all this time, with a smart and attentive look on his face. This incident would have probably remained unknown if the Mitchell family hadn't decided to go on a picnic by the river one day. At first, they didn't even notice that their dog was staring at the bluish surface of the river without turning away. Lucky would only occasionally take a quick glimpse at the families with small children playing around on the sandy coast by the water's edge. The picnic went great that day, but amidst all the fun, a middle-aged man approached the Mitchell family. Seeing Lucky, he said, Bruno, come here, boy." To the surprise of Molly and her parents, Lucky got up and, wagging its tail, rushed towards the stranger. It was only the leash that Brian was holding that kept Lucky in his place. "Sorry, mister, but my dog's name is Lucky," Molly said, very seriously. The man smiled nicely in response and said, "I should probably tell you the whole story. Do you have a little time for me?" Brian and Jessica exchanged worried glances, but still invited the stranger to their impromptu table at the bench. The man introduced himself as Andrew Hamilton. He was a lifeguard who worked exclusively on the rivers and reservoirs of the city. As it turned out, he'd worked together with a dog named Bruno for 7 years. Bruno was a mixed-breed dog, part Newfoundland and part regular mongrel. Bruno was responsible for rescuing many swimmers, mostly children and teenagers. One time, Bruno saved several people from certain death when a drunk boat driver hit a bunch of students kayaking on a river. This incident earned Bruno yet another award for his important job. But after the accident, Bruno suddenly disappeared. It could probably be explained by the injury he sustained while retrieving the drowning owner of the boat, who fell into the water after hitting the kayakers. The dog went into the bushes to lie down. When Bruno was feeling better, he noticed that his owner left for the base without him. Later, Mr. Hamilton repeatedly tried to find the dog. From all the confusion from the terrible accident on the water, Mr. Hamilton simply forgot Bruno there. After Andrew's story, Brian looked into his wife's eyes and saw tears in them. The woman immediately thought about the incident in Molly's room, when Lucky, who turned out to be Bruno, saved her daughter from death. That evening, Bruno spent his last night at the Mitchell family home. And in the morning, Brian and Molly took the dog to the river rescue station. The girl cried as she petted Bruno on the head, saying goodbye to her loyal friend. Mr. Hamilton was heartbroken watching the two. He even started thinking about letting the dog stay at the Mitchells, but then Molly went inside the station and saw Bruno's picture on the wall of honor, where it said that he saved more than 12 lives, and sighed with delight. "Bruno, you are a hero. I am very proud of you, my boy," Brian said sadly, taking his daughter by the hand and leading her to the parked car. Despite feeling very sad and being unable to hold back her tears, Molly understood that Bruno was returning to where he was supposed to be, where he would do what he was born for. Now, Molly and her parents visit the dog every weekend, and Bruno is always very happy to see the girl, who's become his second owner.